Hello, awesome people. I hope you're having a great day today. Today we're taking a look at the third book in the Darksword trilogy by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, the New York Times best-selling book, Triumph of the Darksword. It was published in the second half of 1988, just a few months actually after Doom of the Darksword, the Middle Sword, and just a few months actually after Forging the Darksword. Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman were publishing books at a quick clip. I read this trilogy when I was in junior high. I went to it after I discovered Weis and Tracy Hickman from their Darksword, two Darksword stuff from the Dragonlance trilogy, and the Chronicles, and then the Legends that I read in those 6 books. And that introduced them to a lot of fantasy fans. And what wound up happening after I read that and I did a deep dive into some Dragonlance, then I followed them to this trilogy. And then I followed them from this to the Death Gates cycle, which I haven't finished. But I wanted to go here after I did the 9 books in the Dragonlance. We're going back and rereading them. And as a part of this series, I've been of reviews. I've been doing a lot of reviews of things that I've read when I was junior high or high school, and was thought very fondly of them. And then came back to say, okay, now what do I think of them now, today, going back and rereading it as somebody who's 45 years old and is middle aged, and it's been decades since I read this stuff. Now, the Darksword trilogy was much more impactful to me than the Legends trilogy from Dragonlance. For example, when I went back to reread the Dragonlance stuff, I really only remembered a couple of scenes here and there. Before I went back and read it, I couldn't remember much of it, but I could still remember chapters from the Darksword first novel, for example, and scenes and so forth. And I found that was much more impactful on me. And that makes sense when you think about it, because they wrote this stuff afterwards. So again, they would have been more established by now. Forging the Darksword, the first book in this trilogy, is like the 7th book they've written. So by that time, they've gotten a better handle on what they're like as co-writers and writing, what to expect from each other, and that sort of a thing. I also like this world a lot better than the pretty bog standard Dragonlance series, which is a pretty similar standard, fantasy world that doesn't have a whole lot of differences. It does have the occasional difference, like for example, their halflings and hobbits are Kender, so they have their own takes here and there. But for the most part, it's just a standard world. But this is a very different world than home. In this world, everything is different, from furniture to how they do war, which we'll take a deep dive into in this novel. This novel opens up with a deep dive into a war that's beginning between two city-states and characters that we've met previously. The war will be interrupted by an attack from beyond by the dead, who are masters of technology, and then we'll turn from a high-profile fantasy to a genre shift about 80 pages in to science fantasy, and they're going to be fighting against laser tanks and spaceships and phaser rifles and that sort of a thing. So there's a genre shift in this story, which is fine. I don't mind. I think it's done well. I'm giving this novel probably like a 7.5. So I'm giving it or 7.4, maybe 7.3. So I'm going to be rounding it down, but it is a 7+ to a 7, which is what I gave the Chronicles. And it's also what I gave the first 2 books in this series. In this world, Merlin has led an escape hundreds of years ago from Earth and from Earth to this magic world, where they were persecuted and hung and burned as witches and warlocks, the magic-using people. So they've left the world of technology to found this world, and there are 9 mysteries of light, and they represent different sort of genres, and each of these mysteries has their own sort of things, tools, spells, and that sort of thing that dominate them. And there are 6 that are still used today, but in the Iron Wars that happened a few hundred years ago, is the cataclysmic event that happens in this series in the past that a lot of things you're going to find out about. Anyway, in the Iron Wars, 2 of these realms of mystery were killed out because they were pretty rare. And then one of these was banished because they were the key bad guys behind the Iron Wars. So, and that was death, which are the technologists, the sorcerers, people that use science, and the other 8 are people that use magic. So the 2 that were banished were ghosts, spirits, people that speak with the dead, communicate with the dead and help them out. They're called necromancers. And then the diviners, the people that can predict the time, that create these corridors between various places and so forth. It's pretty cool. And those are both gone. And then the remaining 6 are life, which is rare. Those are the catalysts. They're pretty weak magically, but they're basically like a walking battery charger that can also amplify the power of the other mages. So they're really valuable, and they run the church, and they're clergy. And one of our key characters is Sarion, is also a catalyst too. And then we have, the other 5. Shadow is the illusionists. Those are the artists and the playwrights and the actors and the writers. They're all shadow specialists. And then the other 4 represent the 4 elementalists. Fire's rare. Those are the enforcers and the warriors and the generals of the world. It's pretty rare, and those people are feared. They're arguably the most powerful genre of magic user. And then the other 3 are water. Those are the healers, and they're also people that will help to grow plants. As field magi working in the fields. Earth is the most common one. There's a lot of them. Those are the shapers, the ones that make artifacts. They're also field magi that will plant things in the ground and work the fields as farmers. And then they also will help out with making things like products out of wood, things out of metal, out of stone and that sort of thing, like houses and that sort of thing. They'll shape them. And then the last 2 are air, which are the people that control weather, and that's pretty cool too. Also water heals, and those are the druids, and they heal too. So those are the 6 that are still inactive, including the other 3. One of our key characters, Joram, is born dead, but is living. He is dead to magic. He can't use any magic, so obviously he would be the 9th of technology of death, and he is fulfilling a prophecy. And he is a key character, Joram, in this story, and is a key protagonist as well, along with his on-again, off-again relationship with Father Sarion, our other major character, and they have a love-hate relationship for the first book. It becomes more of a love-love relationship in the second and third books. But there you are. That's sort of it. And you're going to have a lot of world building here. You're going to have a lot about the second book has got a lot of stuff about the politics of the world, particularly the city-state of Merlin, and which has the Emperor in it. And then you're going to have the war is in this one. Now, I do like this novel, the war aspects of this. There are multiple battles. But my major gripe with this is that although I like the war and how they do war in this magic world, how their war is different from ours, and then ultimately the war changes because we're invaded by dead technologists, from the future, and from other planets and star bases that are sending supplies and lasers and laser tanks and phaser rifles and that sort of a thing. So they're clearly fighting, the science fiction fight, and I appreciate the first battle is very nicely detailed over multiple chapters, and I appreciate that. But the final battle in the book is not told. We're actually at a different place on the last battle, and I wish that we had gotten a few chapters of the final battle. I feel like that's something that I'm missing. Although, hey, rather leave them wanting more than to leave them thinking I got too much. I also appreciate that this book's actually 50 pages shorter than the previous 2 books in the series. It's 343 pages long. I read it in 4 days. I read 100 pages rather, the first 3 days, and then I finished it out with the last 45 the last night. So I knocked it out in 4 days very quickly. It didn't take me that long for me to read. It wouldn't take you that long if you haven't read the Darksword trilogy, but you've heard of it, or if you've never heard of it, but you like the authors, or you like this sort of key concept. There's a lot of great world building that happens, and this is more of a military book because a lot of battles and wars and stuff happen. But again, I wish that last book was there. Although it's 50 pages shorter, and I appreciate that, I think you could have spent that 50 pages on, the last battle and give me 3-4 chapters of that. I also really like that this book is shorter or the same length because a lot of later books or final books in series and trilogies often have what I call sequelitis. And Weis and Hickman avoid sequelitis. And sequelitis is basically a term I use for when later books in a series or the final book in a trilogy have longer and longer lengths. Like J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, right? And loads of other writers have done the same thing, and I appreciate that Weis and Hickman, going back and rereading. This is now the 9th book I've gone back and reread after the Dragonlance Chronicles and the Dragonlance Legends. The final book isn't 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 pages longer than the previous two, and I appreciate that. So I do like that. Although, again, I think with the final bout missing, I think that's an issue, and I would have liked to have seen that. And you could have stayed the same like as the previous two novels, and I could have done 100, done an extra hour and a half reading, and then been fine. You're knocking it out in 4 days, still off 100 pages a day. So I would have liked to have done that. But that's how it is. Your mileage may vary. Have you read the Darksword trilogy? Have you read the final book? Have you heard of it? What did you think of it? If you want to talk about spoilers or talk about things in the comments below, I'd love to engage you, whatever your thoughts are. If you think it's more than a 7+ out of 10, if you think it's worse, I'm happy to talk with you about that also in the comments below. If you like this video, why not hit that subscribe button, because there's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it and watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.